Hello everyone, welcome to APO Productivity Talk. I'm Zainuri from APO Secretariat, location based in Tokyo, Japan. So today, the theme of Productivity Talk, we are talking about the productivity transformations or PX. With the current ongoing pandemic, we are still struggling to cope or to recover from this unprecedented matter. So this topic is timely for us to discuss. And today we are very fortunate to have our National Productivity Organization in Japan, which is Japan Productivity Center, who will explain to us the new concept of this productivity transformation or PX. We are very fortunate with us today is Ms. Sayaka Harada, the Global Alliance Chief of Policy and Strategic Planning Division of Japan Productivity Center of JPC. Ms. Sayaka Harada will explain the pillars of the transformation roadmap and the necessity of the transforming the concept of productivity in order to generate a virtuous circle of growth and fair distribution of productivity gains. However, before we will listen to the presentation by Ms. Sayaka Harada, I'm very honored to have Mr. Yukihiro Okawa, the Managing Director of JPC, who will give us the introduction as well as the welcoming all of us for this session today. Mr. Okawa, the floor is yours.
Thank you for the opportunity and the invitation to the APO Productivity Talk. I'm Okawa, Managing Director of the Japan Productivity Center. Today, my colleague, Mrs. Harada, would like to talk about JPC's Global Alliance initiatives and activities that we have been working on for the past 4 years. First of all, I'd like you to understand that productivity is meant to enrich our society. Just as Paul Krugman, productivity isn't everything, but in the long run, it is almost everything. Japan's economic growth has slowed down over the past 30 years due to the low rate of productivity growth. As a result, Japan's productivity level, which once was among the highest in the world, declined substantially. As NPO, we cannot overlook this situation. Let us take a look back on our history when JPC was established. At that time, Japan had absorbed ways of scientific management through learning from American and European industries and concept of productivity enhancement by human resource development. So, facing today's productivity slowdown in Japan, we decided to benchmark the United States and Germany on how to increase productivity growth. Harada will tell you the details in her presentation, but the final goal is to create good society and affluence in society through productivity improvement and reform. To this end, 3 types of investments are essential. Investment in human resource development, in R&D, and in capital. In addition, we must think about the rapid progress of digital socialization, service industrialization, and globalization with a human-centric perspectives. Furthermore, not only productivity improvement, but how the productivity gains are distributed fairly to stakeholders. This shall lead to a good society where people can feel affluence and prosperity. We name this new concept as productivity transformation, in short, PX. Now, Harada talk about our concept specifically. Thank you.
Thank you very much for inviting me to the APO's productivity talk today. I am Sayaka Harada of the Japan Productivity Center. So, the Japan Productivity Center has been reboosting our global alliance activities since 2018 as part of the relaunch of our productivity movement in Japan. And we have compiled the results and arguments obtained through the process into the publication, this one, entitled Productivity Transformation, which is PX in short, at the end of last year. So, about the PX, as the society, and the economy become more sophisticated, complex, and mature, productivity movement has been also shifting from being the one simple matter of improving the level of productivity to the ones with the aim of the increasing the rate of productivity growth and also fair distribution to diverse stakeholders. And it has become more and more important to benchmark more broadly through dialogue with leaders in various countries. So the PX aims not only to raise productivity levels, but also to increase the growth rate of productivity and the way of fair distribution of the fruits of productivity improvement. In other words, productivity transformation incorporates the promotion of the virtuous cycle of growth and distribution. And that is what JPC is advocating through our Global Alliance activities recently. So the first half of today's session, I will introduce details of our efforts in establishing Global Alliance between the United States and Germany and our proposal of management centered on productivity, and which is to escape the long-term slump in labor productivity for the realization of truly good society. Later on, I look forward to your questions and comments. Okay, now let us invite you to the journey of productivity transformation, uh, our old but new concept. Okay, let me firstly briefly introduce about our organization, the Japan Productivity Center. We are the national productivity organization in Japan and established in 1955. We have the unique tripartite feature consisting of business, labor, and academia, and so forth. And this year, on June 19th, the National Council for the Reform of Japan, in short, RINCHO 2022, was established for the basis for the political and administrative reforms over the past 30 years of Japan's Heisei period. So we are working on productivity reform to pass on a sustainable economy and society to the next generation. In terms of the business size, we have approximately 10 billion yen of the revenues, and which is about the 75 million US dollars currently. And also we have in terms of staff employee size, approximately 270. Next slide, please. Okay, so our Global Alliance activities, we have initiated these activities in 2018, the first year for the productivity reform. So the purpose was to initiate dialogues on productivity with corporate executives in Europe and in the US. And in Europe, we picked up Germany as our benchmarking country. And we tried to establish a collaboration to organize international conferences with American and German partners. And also we are aiming to do it with Asian countries. And we also try to do the information exchange and also collaborative research projects as well. And we are now in the second midterm activities right now, and we are now expanding in those dialogues and interactions among business leaders in Japan, the US, and Germany to carry out the full-scale research and productivity. So moreover, we would like to gradually build an alliance networks with the business leaders in Asian countries. Next page, please. So these are the themes of activities. So the overall goal is to make the virtuous cycle work. So the virtuous cycle, the first comes from the productivity enhancement, especially the productivity formulas numerator, which is value added, the creation and enlargement of the value added. And also the another very important aspect is to try to look at the fair distribution of fruits. So with the empathy of all stakeholders. And this kind of productivity enhancement and the fair distribution at the micro level, which is the organizational level or the each company level, to the macro level dissemination. So we'd like to gather the main actor, which is the business leaders of each company, to try to promote our productivity transformation. Next page, please. So these are the three pillars of activities. One is the international comparison survey. So to start with, we need to grab the facts on the labor productivity in Japan. And the fact-finding and feasibility studies to set the direction of our future activities. So all of our activities are based on the survey results and with the international comparative views. And the second one is the international conference, which is the dialogue between the business leaders of Japan and US or the Germany. And the third one is to exchange the programs. This is to hand it over to the next generation, in other words. So all the learnings and the arguments we have developed, we need to make it put into the practice. So JPC always seeks the practical activities. So from each other, what we have benchmarked, our strength, and the other country's strengths, we need to exchange those. So these are the three pillars of the activities. Next slide, please. So far, the collaboration network has been established through with American 2 institutions and the Germany 3 organizations. And within Japan, we formulate the Productivity Management Council, and also we have other business leaders network. And with the United States, one is the Brookings Institution. It is U.S. Washington, D.C. based think tank, and was ranked as #1 think tank in the world. And the other counterpart is the Conference Board based in New York. And they are very famous for global productivity survey. So they also have the #1 position in other rankings. And our German 3 partners, one is the ACATEC, the top one. This is the organization that proposed the famous Germany's policy of Industry 4.0. And also DJW, which is a Deutsch-Japanese association. And the chairman of this DJW is the former Chancellor Angela Merkel's brain for the policies in formulating policies on Japan. And also we have the another academic organization called Münchener Kreis as our networking organizers. So easiest to come, needless to say, the APO. Okay, next page, please. So this is the slide showing the Productivity Management Council's composition. So we established this business leaders network within Japan since June 2018. And the chair is our JPC's chairman, Yuzaburo Mogi, who is the chairman of the Kikoman Corporation. And also the vice chair, Shigeo Oyagi, and so on. Right now, we have 17 of all members, and each members are the chairmen or the CEOs of each company, and each company is representing Japanese businesses. So from the food processing companies or the aviation countries, the retail, and the other electrical appliances, pharmaceutical companies, so forth. Okay, next slide, please. So with those councils' advices, we have done many surveys on international comparison. And this slide explains about the conference board's survey, international survey called the C-Suite Outlook. This is the annual awareness survey conducted by the conference board in New York with regional partners around the world. So JPC plays the Japan's regional partner. And these are the examples, the annual topics. For 2020, the first topic was collaboration, but the COVID-19 broke up. So we have done the mid-year survey seeking for the post-corona situation. And also, after that, we have done annual researches. But this year, again, the war in Ukraine started. So the volatility, war risks, these are the topics for the mid-year, the current one. And the results of the survey is disseminated through our press conferences, website, and media, and some of them are taken to our government proposals or the references, and also the our major broadcasting station, and covered by news as well. Okay, so next slide, please. Yes, with the other American partner, the Brookings Institution, we have conducted more or less the macro level study on the productivity. So there are two scholars from the Brookings Institution who are in collaboration with us, and then they have done the analysis of productivity situation in Japan, the United States, and Germany, those three countries. And this graph shows the labor productivity growth, and each year evaluated by USD in constant prices. And then you can see the dark blue line on the bottom is the Japan's so far the our track records until the year 2018, and the gray line is the United States, the world top leader in terms of labor productivity. And light blue color is Germany, and you can see that the Germany has already finished its catching up process to the United States in early by the end of 1980s, and they are sometimes way over United States, but now slightly different. But American and German lines are quite close each other, but you can see that Japan is never ending its catching up process. So we have firstly look at this kind of macro level data, and then also we seek for why is the reason behind. So the other researcher, he focused on the R&D area, which is and he takes pickup as a patent, and and we have found that the Japan's inferiority in global collaborative patent is so obvious. And we are far behind from our Asian colleagues like South Korea or PRC China. And also another important findings was that wage premium by higher education. Wage is one of the substitute for the productivity level of each individuals, but the higher education's wage premium in Japan is rather smaller compared to those of Americans and also the Germans. Okay, so like this. Okay, next page, please. Okay, so this is about our international conference scene. It's called the First Business Leaders Forum on Productivity, which was held in New York, April 12th, 3 years ago. And this was the real face-to-face forum between the Japan's 10 business leaders and also the 10 American leaders. And this was also co-hosted by the Converse Board in New York. And then there we have discussed a lot, and as a result we have formulated the joint declaration centralizing the importance of digital transformation and also the productivity improvement and the productivity transformation. So I'd like to introduce participants of these forums what they have thought after the dialogue between American and Japanese leaders. Would you please play the YouTube video clip, please?
I think one of the greatest challenges that companies and nations face is how to enhance productivity. So this forum to look at the productivity issues and slowdown in Japan and in the United States has been an amazing opportunity for us to look at both countries' issues and solutions and work together to try to come to a common perspective as to how are we going to address the issue of slowing productivity rates in much of the industrialized world.
If we just get the information or news about the US and Japan, we feel like whole US people or industries are becoming like a Google or Apple or Amazon. But now today we understand it really happens on some limited region and some limited people. So average of United States people are facing the same common problem as Japanese. So it's a sort of a kind of good news for us, but we share a very big challenge each other. So that's a big lesson for us. I expect if we can discuss in this depth, maybe we can find out most of the problems are common.
One of the things that really intrigued me and that I had learned from the Japan leadership here today and the companies represented is that they too have difficult times developing and digitizing everything that it is that they really need to run their companies in a successful way. But what I found really special was this common thread of truly caring for the workers and caring for the people that make their companies great. And also the understanding that there's not just employees that are building these companies up, that Japan too is going through a large flux and growth of the independent workforce. So that was really great to see.
I am very, very impressed that both sides emphasize the importance of human resource. So human investment is an essential factor for our business leaders. In order to increase or improve productivity, very, very simple. We need to increase or maximize the added value and minimize working hour. So we need to utilize the digital transformation to improve productivity, especially added value.
Okay, thank you very much. So this was the impressions that the leaders who got together in New York 3 years ago, and then they shared their messages. So these kind of activities, we are now developing the new program. Could you go to this next slide, please? Next slide, please. Yes. Okay, so we are now developing the exchange program called the Productivity Management Forum, which is essentially the training program for the next generation CEOs, the business leaders in Japan. So that's with the size of about 15 people representing each industries. And then we put focus on the mutual study through the dialogue and discussion in small groups. And we value the direct dialogue between and also the interactions of outstanding management leaders and the business leaders, and who have already made numerous business decisions over this their very volatile environment, and then try to learn on face-to-face basis their management excellence. So this is one example that we put our learnings into the practical training forms. Okay, next page, please. So another form of dissemination, we have our own media called Productivity Newspaper, and also we have our own website. So we put up our interviews of members and Productivity Management Council in YouTube, and also try to disseminate survey findings, which is normally the macro level or the industry level comparison of the productivity internationally, but it also helps each company's approach try to look at the general background or the general environment that's surrounding our labor productivity. Next page, please. Okay, so now it comes to the publication. So we have compiled all the learnings, findings, and the arguments within this book last year. And the book is composed of mainly two parts. The first part talks about the definition of productivity and also the productivity situation and the issues in Japan and the other countries. And also there's the part two. We are now trying to propose a new concept of productivity transformation, which is essentially they're trying to create the virtuous cycle of growth and the fair distribution. So I have put up the labor productivity formula down in the slide, and try to look at the productivity with numerators and denominators. That's the numerator is essentially the value added. So firstly, we also need to create the value added for the first place. And also in terms of the denominator, labor input, it should be wisely used as well. Okay, so next page, please. So to start with, we have the assumption that why the Japan's productivity level is so slow, and then what will be the background behind it. And so we have these hypotheses like for example, the so-called three sacred treasures, which is the lump sum hiring of new graduate, or in other words, lifetime employment in Japan's very usual management practice, or the seniority-based wage system and the company-based labor unions. Those are the three sacred treasures of Japanese management, they call. And also the principles of organizational behavior. And we like the decision-making in collectivism, and also very slow because it's bottom-up approach. So these are still remain in practice in many Japanese corporations, so that would slow down our labor productivity growth. And another possible reason behind it is the human resource management style. It's now changing, but still the traditional membership type of human resource management is going on. And there are other types of it. It's called the job-based type. And the hybrid version is also ongoing. But now in the transitional period, still most companies are struggling how to set their principles on the human resource management. And also the ways of working and the variety of jobs. for example, the digitalization, this may not be so various compared to our colleagues in Europe and the Americans. Why is not still taking in place in Japan? So these are the our questions, in other words. So so we found those productivity bottlenecks with the facts and data and trying to propose our resolution. Okay, so the next slide, please. So in terms of the fair distribution of results, could you go to the next slide, please? Yes. So this chart shows the labor productivity and wages, the correlations of that. And you can see, yeah, I need to enlarge a bit. Sorry, this chart might be a bit small in characters, but actually the general trend is that since the late 1990s, the wages have remained stagnant or declined, even as the labor productivity has increased. So, and also there's the OECD data also shows the declining labor share in the United States and other developing economies, and declining labor share in Japan, especially among large companies, which is clear. So labor share is declining, whereas the capital share is growing. So the human resource development within the company is, in other words, it's an advance payment for the compensation to employees. And then this can be also viewed as distribution productivity fruits in broader definition. But the labor share is not necessarily the same trend as the wages, our wages. Okay, so this is the fact. Next page. And it is very clear that Japan also lacks the investment in human resource development. This is one of the chart taken from the government, our government's analysis. And you can see the small chart of Japan on the far right-hand side. And this is the ratio of companies' capacity building expenditure to the GDP. And the American, French, Germany, Italy, they are somewhat around 1% to 2% to the GDP they are spending on. But of course, there are some difficulties in collecting all these expenditures. But Japan is internationally very low. And even worse, it's declining over the years. So less than 0.5% of GDP. And the investment in people, the starting point of innovation, is the prerequisite for continuous productivity improvement. But we are now lacking. It is obvious from the international comparison. Okay, so please go to the next page. So one of the good aspects of investment in human resource development, it's also proven, and this is showing the elasticity of human capital investment relative to labor productivity. So elasticity is a bit difficult, but this is suggesting that average the 1% increase in human capital investment, for example, per worker may increase the labor productivity by about 0.6%. So the important thing is that if you invest in human resource, you will get the labor productivity growth in return. So as long as it's all you can get the positive effect. Whereas no matter how your basic condition was, the horizontal axis shows the percentile of the companies so when you go to the left-hand side, it's showing the companies at lower level of labor productivity. They will get more, even higher, like 0.7 over elasticity. Companies who are already practicing good investment on the human resource, who are the companies on the right-hand side, they still get the positive impact. So you can see investing people is always you can get the positive impact. Right, let's move on. So another aspect is the one of the very important resource of R&D is that the patent you are filing. And Japan's R&D expenditure is, in terms of the money, in terms of quantity, it's over. It is higher than those of American and German companies, but German in the macro basis. But the other hand, when it comes to the patents quality basis, there are 5-year forward citations, breakthrough index, and there are several indexes that you can get look at, originality and generality. So all those quality patents, do we filing enough? No, it's not really. And then if you take a look at more closely that those quality patents are basically globally collaborated patents. That meaning that 2 or more groups of inventors from more than 2 countries are involved. And then those globally collaborative patents are very shown in very good in quality indices. And you can see the right-hand side corner. I'm so sorry that the chart is very small, but the Japan is the orange line in the bottom right chart that you can see the graph. And our share for the global collaborative patents to all the patent share is only like it's like 0.3% right now, whereas the German is growing rapidly, and then also the American patents, GCPs, are also growing, but our growth is very flat. Thank you. So next page, please. So finally, this is our proposal to create a virtuous cycle by growth and distribution. So if you look at the management more with the breaking down of the productivity formula of numerator, which is value added, also the denominator improvement, and also the numerator, denominator both. We hope that ease the management leaders to promote our productivity thinking. And then also in terms of the time span, that we also look at the fair distribution of results to all relative stakeholders. And try to do that. By doing so, we can further achieve the increase in productivity. So trying to create a virtuous cycle by utilizing, of course, the digital technology and effective investment in facilities, equipment, R&D, and human resource development. So these will lead us to the virtuous cycle of growth and fair distribution. Okay, so this is very short version of our publication right now, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Ms. Sayaka Harada, for the presentation on the PX initiative by Japan Productivity Center. Ladies and gentlemen, before we move to the discussion with Ms. Sayaka Harada, I would like to invite our viewers who are with us in the live session today. If you have any questions, you have any comments, please put it in the chat box. Please give us your full name as well as where you are located now or your country of origin. Then we will select the questions and then we'll present to Ms. Sayaka Harada today being with us. But before we get the audience comment and questions for you, Ms. Sayaka Harada. So I have a few things for clarifications
Please.
based on your presentation. But anyway, thank you so much for your presentation.
You're
It's very
welcome.
insightful, very informative for us to know what is the latest initiative by Japan.
It's our
Activities.
pleasure.
Thank you so much. Okay. These days, as what you presented is in the video, there's one of the business leaders mentioned about the importance of digital transformation or DX. Yeah, so it's very important these days. But in Japan, we know that Kaizen is something that is synonym with Japan.
Okay.
Okay, so what actually do you think the roles of Kaizen in the future with this all DX in place now, and do you think this Kaizen is still important? What is
Okay.
your views on that? Yeah.
Okay, my view is that I think that the idea and the role of Kaizen is still important in terms of improving businesses created through innovation. But unfortunately, our Japanese, mostly manufacturing industries, existing business have been disrupted greatly. And so the priority should be given to innovation. But the one thing is that as companies mature, they tend to be biased towards the exploitation, which is the deepening of the existing core businesses. Or in other words, the companies become more conservative, and the Japanese companies, which is important to embed the exploitation process, which is the seeking for innovation or the creating new businesses into the management structure in order to promote the digitalization, DX. And in doing so, that it's possible to apply the approach cultivated through Kaizen as well, because the Kaizen's original meaning is that improvement or the seeking for a better. So it's really, it goes with the productivity movement. So it can be sublimated to the productivity movement itself and in corporate management, not only in the manufacturing sector.
Okay,
so that's my view.
Yeah, thank you so much. So it means that Kaizen is still important.
Yeah, it's very universal and general.
Correct. Even though DX is already in place, but we still need that Kaizen. Okay, thank you. I have second questions. Okay, based on your presentation, you mentioned about the decline of human capital investment for in Japanese companies. So, can you tell us what are the reasons why companies hesitate actually for human resource investment, and how the support from the government on this area?
It's quite a large, broad question.
Okay,
but the main reason why the companies have cut back the investment in human resources is that during the long economic stagnation, almost it's like 30 years almost, and also that follows the bursting of the bubble economy in the 1990s. So the labor cost for the eyes of the CEOs at the time, or it's still now, that's is seen as the expense or the cost, and they try to secure the profits by cutting off those costs. So the companies are now still reluctant to invest, and we see that such volatile, uncertain environment, and we cannot see the future very clearly. So the company's internal reserves or the savings have now reaching the highest level ever. And what was happening is that maybe as a management strategy, it is high road to challenge the market competition by improving the quality and price of products or services while reducing sales and the products. But trying to secure the profits by cutting costs or the cutting investments in R&D or the human resources is rather the low road strategy in comparison. And it's only taken for the emergency evacuation. But unfortunately, the main or the majority of Japanese companies over the past 30 years have been just too busy responding to each drastic changes. And then they have repeatedly taken that evacuative approach without taking on the major challenges or taking the risks. So it's almost no exaggeration to say that they have fallen into a state of balancing by contradiction of the management. So for the government role, the Japanese government is now promoting the realization of economic policies based on their ideas of new capitalism, and try to raise the minimum wage in response to the trend of ESG evaluations. And they are also mandating the disclosure of some human resource indicators, like the expenditure on the human resource management, and also the wage gap between men and women, or the mechanism to enable diverse employees to demonstrate their abilities. So this kind of trend is try to evaluate human resource as a source of the corporate value rather than the human resource cost. So these are we welcome this kind of trend.
Thank you, Ms. Sayaka, for your explanation about why the Japanese company decline in investing in human resource, as well as what is the government intervention now to support the companies to increase their investment on that particular area. Okay, before we move to another question, I would like to read a few messages given by our audience who join us live. We have a message from Mr. Malo Abdullah from Malaysia, our strong supporter to our productivity talk. So yes, with the strong support from APU and JPC, NPOs have started National Productivity Movement in Malaysia in 1984. Thank you so much, Mr. Malo, for being with us all the time for our live sessions. I would like to pick up one question here from Mr. Ahmad Salahuddin. The question is about in the productivity growth. Ms. Sayaka, allow me to read the question. In the productivity growth pattern, there must be difference between public versus the private sector that may not be reflected from inter-country comparison. So what is your thinking about it?
Yeah, when our Productivity Management Council, our internal meetings, discussions, lots of business leaders in Japan points out this because the micro level growth sometimes does not necessarily collectively reflected on the macro level activities. And even further, a lot of business leaders point out that the government sector, public sectors, for example, the digitalization in Japan is so behind. We have consumed so much time in, for example, trying to give away the supporting money, the subsidies in Japan within Japan during the COVID period for the assistance, and whereas the other countries like the United Kingdom, they would do it in 3 days, or the other, it's a famous comparison. This is how the public sector is slow in digitalization.
Thank you, Ms. Sayaka Harada. Maybe I would like to give a chance for one other question from audience, since Mr. Malo has posted one question here. Appreciate if Sayaka-san, Ms. Sayaka, have time to elaborate more on how to get strong and continuing support from Japanese business organizations.
Elaborate more, continuing support
how to get support from the Japanese firm in this for this productivity transformation.
Okay. So, all right. So we are using the various type of the dissemination forms, and the one have been already covered in my presentation. That we kind of advertise, promote through our media, and this kind of APU's productivity talk session is one form of it, and as well as that, we maybe the third pillar's activity of our Global Alliance initiatives, which is the exchange program. So try to educate, or we shouldn't say that. We should be more humble that they try to train or try to benchmark each other for the next generation CEOs, business leaders in Japan. That's what we have learned. We shouldn't repeat our failure. So we just only learn from the good best practices from all over the world that were collected from all over the world and try to pass it down to the next generation leaders. So this is what we are now trying to put more focus on it.
Okay. In relation to that questions, I have a question on what are the roles of the governments and the private sector for productivity transformation? Yeah.
Well, so JPC is also engaging in national consensus building activities, as I have just mentioned in the very first page. And for the lasting development of democracy, the sustainable development of democracy and society, and try to disseminate the proposals for the macro level society. But as an NPO, National Productivity Center, we think that's basically the role of politics and government is those macro level playing. That's other hand, the specific actors in the development of productivity improvement are the individual companies and its leaders at the micro level. So we, JPC, help to play the role as a catalyst or the intermediary center to promote learning and benchmarking of productivity improvement.
Thank you. So that's the role of JPC to facilitate between the government and the private sector. Yep. Okay, I would like to pick one questions from the audience. I think this is Mr. Aditi Patel. So I think you can explain in your presentation about the reason of the productivity is going down in Japan. So what are the reasons? Maybe you can give your insight about this. What are the reasons of productivity is going down in Japan? Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people say there's and also I have just touched upon within the kaizens, you know. So many industries are disrupted, and in the past, what we have seen as strong economy has been now decayed away, or they was washed away. So we have seen the very long-term stagnation in turn. So it is maybe at a certain point it's difficult to grow further because been already matured in one place, and the social or the economic system is quite old, and that might be fitted in 30 years ago, but we are not replacing the new system yet.
Correct. So that's why this productivity transformation is initiated by the JPC.
Yes.
Okay. Another question I think is interesting from Mr. Aditi Patel. We talk about the digital transformation. Then he mentioned about robot machines replacing slowly humans. So, do you think productivity is still relevant in the future?
Of course.
Okay.
Because maybe human resources may not be free from the labor, I think. So
even though it's replacing
the harder, the manual work can be replaced by the robot, or the human beings should utilize the robot or the machines.
Okay. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, audience out there, if you still have questions or comments, you can still post it in our chat box. So we still have a few minutes before we close the session today. This is my last question for you, Ms. Sayaka.
Okay.
You're talking about the collaboration between JPC and the Japan and the US, yeah? So based on the studies and dialogue with other countries, what are the implications for Asia and Pacific region? So do you think those learnings are also applicable for our region?
We hope that's of course the Japan's experience may be useful in considering the future of Asian countries. For example, as I said, Japan is currently facing numerous challenges, like the shifting to the service industries, and as our economy matures, and also that in terms of population, we see the decline in birth rate, and we face aging more and more aged society,
Okay.
and the progressive in digitalization, and also the widening social disparities. These are the new challenges we are now facing, and they can be set as a reflection of near future of the Asian countries. So some of the steps that Japan have been taking to improve the productive impediments, like, so maybe our step is not drastic change, but it can be used still, used
Okay.
as a reference. We hope.
That's good. That can be reference for our in a specific region.
Yeah, so that you can lead the you shouldn't repeat some of the mistakes that we were taking.
Okay, so I would like to take one last question from our audience, again from Mr. Ahmad Salahuddin. The question is it is not the human resource investment within the companies, it is the overall investment in the education sector that matters for the productivity improvement. So would you agree with this statement?
Well, it's difficult, but we see the human resource investment within the company still matters, and of course with especially the Brookings Institution. Brookings research report that they point out the Japan's education system's inferiority, especially in higher education system. The universities or the graduate school, they are in terms of the education's effect, they are failing to match the industry's demands,
yes.
or in terms of the skill development.
Okay.
So they're supplying the university graduates not fully equipped with the skills that our industries, the private sector demands, but still the company level there should be done a lot, and because of the overall economic stagnation for 30 years consecutively, decrease in the human resource development. This has given us the very severe impact in recreating the value added within Japan. So this is happening universally in Japanese corporations. That's not trying to invest and just save the money internally, but trying to so it might be stable in terms of economy or the company's PL sheet, but it's not future looking at all.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sayaka Harada, for giving us her insights, as well her answer to all the inquiries and questions from the audience, as well from me on this topic that we discuss today, which is productivity transformation, or PX. Okay, before we wrap up the session for today, maybe I would like to invite you, if you have any final message to our audience today who will be with us today, or anyone who will watch this video later.
Okay. Thank you very much. My presentation may not be complete at all, and the JPC is still struggling to promote our new concept, productivity transformation, with our Japanese, network, productivity network, all the actors in productivity movement. But we are looking forward to have the direct dialogue between you in near future, hopefully within APO schemes.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sayaka Harada, for being with us today. And also, I would like to thank you to Mr. Yukihiro Okawa, the Managing Director of JPC, who being with us in the beginning, to deliver his welcome remark, as well as a short introduction about the productivity transformation of PX done by JPC. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of today's session when we discuss about the PX. But our productivity talks will be broadcast live or recorded until the end of the year. For the year 2022, we will going to invite various speakers from the different background and also a different sector like manufacturing, industries, agriculture, as well as public sector, to talk about the emerging trends, the latest information related to productivity enhancement. So please join in our next series. And as I mentioned earlier, please don't forget to check our content, digital content in the APO YouTube channel. And we'll be looking forward to see you again in the future. So till then, thank you so much, everyone, and please take care. Thank you.